When the calendar is about to turn another page, when people around you start talking about resolutions and new beginnings, you feel something different stirring in your chest. It's not exactly sadness, but it's also not the collective euphoria that seems to contaminate everyone else. It's as if you were standing at a train station, watching the cars pass by full of excited passengers, while you remain motionless on the platform, questioning whether you really want to board this journey of manufactured optimism. There's something deeply honest in recognizing that not everyone awaits the new year with hope, and perhaps this honesty is exactly what you need to find your own way of living. Albert Camus, the philosopher who taught us to look at the absurd nature of existence without averting our eyes, would perfectly understand this feeling you carry. For him, life wasn't a sequence of chapters with guaranteed happy endings, but a continuous experience where meaning doesn't come ready-made, where hope isn't a right acquired by the simple act of existing. Camus knew that recognizing the absence of guarantees isn't pessimism, it's clarity. It's the courage to see things as they really are, without the colored filters that society insists on placing over our vision. When December comes to an end, when the streets fill with fireworks and social media overflows with messages about miraculous fresh starts, you might feel a strange alienation. It's as if everyone around you had received a manual on how to feel hope, but your copy never arrived. You observe people talking about how next year will be different, better, more promising. And part of you would like to feel that same certainty, but another part, perhaps deeper and wiser, recognizes that this automatic hope might just be another comfortable illusion. Camus would tell us about the absurd man, the one who recognizes that the universe has no ready answers to our most fundamental questions. There's no divine plan guaranteeing that January will be better than December. There's no cosmic force organizing our happiness on an annual schedule. What exists is you, your consciousness, your capacity to choose how to respond to this absence of guarantees. And perhaps it's exactly there that a different form of strength resides, a strength that doesn't need fireworks to manifest itself. Society sells us the idea that hope is mandatory, especially in moments of transition like the turn of the year. We're bombarded with messages about positive thinking, about the importance of believing everything will work out, about maintaining faith in the future. But Camus would teach us that this forced hope can be a form of bad faith, a way to escape the fundamental reality of the human condition. It's not that he was against hope itself, but against hope as social obligation, as a performance we must execute to fit into the collective script of optimism. Have you ever stopped to think how many times in your life you've been questioned about your plans for the new year, about your expectations, about your dreams for the next 12 months, and how many times did you feel that your honest answer wouldn't be well received? Because the honest answer sometimes is, I don't know if I have hope. Sometimes it's, I'm tired of pretending I believe in magical fresh starts. Sometimes it's simply, I want to continue existing, and that's enough for now. For Camus, this brutal honesty with oneself wasn't the end of the story. It was the beginning of an authentic life. When we stop pretending we have hopes we don't feel, when we stop performing optimism to please others, we open space for something much deeper and truer. We open space for revolt, not in the sense of destructive anger, but in the sense of a courageous affirmation of life, even in the face of its lack of pre-established meaning. Camusian revolt isn't about breaking things or screaming at the world. It's about saying yes to life, even when it doesn't offer the guarantees we'd like to have. It's about continuing to walk, even without knowing exactly where we're going. It's about finding beauty and meaning in small moments, in concrete experiences, in genuine human connections, without needing a grandiose narrative about destiny or cosmic purpose to validate our existence. When you feel this resistance to the collective euphoria of the new year, perhaps you're experiencing something Camus would call lucidity. You're seeing through the consoling illusions and touching something more real, more solid, though less comfortable. You're recognizing that life isn't a movie with an inspiring soundtrack, but a complex experience, contradictory, sometimes difficult, sometimes beautiful, always uncertain. There's nothing wrong with admitting you don't know if next year will be better. There's nothing pathological in recognizing that your hope doesn't follow the commercial calendar. In fact, this capacity to question ready-made narratives, to resist social pressure, to feel what others expect you to feel, might be a sign that you're more connected to your own authenticity than many people around you. Camus lived during World War II, saw up close the absurd nature of human violence, the arbitrariness of death, the fragility of all our constructions of meaning. And even so, he didn't choose despair or nihilism. He chose revolt, solidarity, the creation of meaning through action. Not because he had guarantees that his actions would make a difference in the grand scheme of things, but because he recognized that acting authentically was the only dignified response to the absurd condition of existence. Perhaps your resistance to the automatic hope of the new year is, in fact, an invitation to discover deeper and more lasting ways of relating to the future, ways that don't depend on specific dates, on collective rituals, on promises you're not sure you can keep, ways that emerge from your concrete experience, from your real values, from your capacity to create small moments of meaning in the midst of apparent greater meaninglessness. Think about the people you admire, those who seem to have genuine inner strength. How many of them base their strength on hopes about the future? And how many base their strength on the capacity to face the present with courage and authenticity? Camus would teach us that true strength doesn't come from believing everything will work out, but from continuing to act ethically and creatively, even without that guarantee. When you observe the arrival of another year without the expected euphoria, when you feel this kind of fatigue in the face of promises of renewal, perhaps you're touching something the ancient Greeks would call wisdom. The wisdom of recognizing that life is more complex than simple self-help formulas, that human experience doesn't fit perfectly into the artificial cycles we create to organize time. This doesn't mean you should resign yourself to bitterness or isolation. It means you can choose more authentic ways of relating to hope, to the future, to your own existence. You can choose small and concrete hopes instead of grandiose and abstract ones. You can choose to believe in your capacity to respond with dignity to whatever comes, instead of believing that what comes will necessarily be good. Camus spoke about the myth of Sisyphus, condemned by the gods to push a rock up a mountain for all eternity, only to see it roll back down and have to start all over again. For many, this would be the perfect image of despair, of futility. But Camus saw something different. He saw the possibility of Sisyphus finding meaning in the very act of pushing the rock, of defining himself through his response to the absurd condition imposed upon him. Perhaps your relationship with the new year is similar to this. It's not about expecting that this time the rock will stay at the top of the mountain, but about finding your own way to push it. It's not about pretending hopes you don't feel, but about discovering what strength exists in you even when conventional hopes fail. Now I want to pause here and ask you something important. Have you ever felt this sensation of being disconnected from the collective euphoria of the new year? Have you caught yourself questioning whether you really believe in all these rituals of renewal and hope? If you identified with this feeling, leave a comment saying, "I feel this too." I want you to know that you're not alone in this. In fact, your honesty about these questions can help other people who are going through the same process of questioning. Sometimes the greatest gift we can give each other is permission to feel what we really feel, without judgment, without pressure to perform optimism. There's a particular beauty in recognizing that not all hope is genuine, that not all optimism is authentic. When you stop pretending to have feelings you don't have, you open space for truer feelings, more connected to your real experience. And these feelings, even if they're more complex, more ambiguous, have a solidity that manufactured hope can never have. Camus would teach us that freedom begins exactly in this moment of radical honesty with oneself. When you stop forcing yourself to feel what others expect you to feel, when you stop blaming yourself for not being able to keep up with collective enthusiasm, you free yourself to discover your own ways of relating to life, to time, to the future. It's not that you're against hope itself. It's that you're against hope as social obligation, as a performance that must be executed at certain moments in the calendar. You recognize, perhaps without being able to express it clearly, that true hope cannot be forced, cannot be programmed, cannot be produced on social demand. True hope emerges from concrete experiences of meaning, from moments when you feel that your existence makes sense, not because someone told you it does, but because you directly experience this sensation of meaning. It might be a moment of genuine connection with another person. It might be the satisfaction of creating something with your own hands. It might be the simple experience of being totally present in a beautiful or meaningful moment. Camus valued these concrete experiences of meaning much more than grand abstract narratives about purpose and destiny. He believed it was in small acts of creation, of solidarity, of beauty, that we found the only possible answers to the fundamental, absurd nature of existence. Not answers that would solve the absurd, but answers that would allow us to coexist with it in a dignified way. When you feel this resistance to the automatic hope of the new year, perhaps you're being called to something deeper, to a way of living that doesn't depend on promises about the future, but that finds its value in the present. A way of living that doesn't need external guarantees to justify itself, but that justifies itself through the quality of your response to the challenges that life presents. This doesn't mean living without direction or without purposes. It means that your purposes emerge from your real experience, from your concrete values, from your capacity to respond authentically to the world around you. These are purposes you can pursue regardless of what year it is on the calendar, because they're rooted in your own nature, not in social expectations about when and how we should renew our lives. Perhaps the greatest irony is that by stopping forcing hopes you don't feel, you might end up discovering more genuine and lasting hopes. Hopes based not on fantasies about how the world should be, but on concrete experiences of how you can respond to the world as it is. Hopes that don't need fireworks to manifest, because they have their own inner light. Camus spent his whole life exploring this tension between the human search for meaning and the apparent meaninglessness of the universe. He didn't resolve this tension by creating another consoling philosophy, another belief system that promised definitive answers. Instead, he taught us to live productively within this tension, to find ways to create meaning without denying the fundamental reality of our condition. And perhaps that's exactly what you're doing when you resist the collective euphoria of the new year. You're refusing easy consolations, cheap promises about automatic renewal, and touching something more real and more difficult, but also more solid and more authentic. If you've made it this far in this reflection, if these ideas make sense to you, I'd like to invite you to be part of a community of people who are also interested in exploring these deeper questions about existence. Subscribing to this channel isn't just about receiving notifications of new videos. It's about connecting with other people who also value intellectual honesty, emotional authenticity, and the courage to ask difficult questions. It's not pressure. It's just an invitation for those who feel these conversations make sense in their journey of self-discovery. Camus lived only 46 years, but left a legacy that continues helping people decades after his death. A legacy based not on promises about how life should be, but on honest observations about how life really is, and about how we can respond to this reality with dignity, creativity, and solidarity. When he wrote about the absurd, about revolt, about the need to imagine Sisyphus happy, he wasn't offering another self-help formula. He was sharing a way of living that doesn't depend on consoling illusions, a way of finding meaning through the very search for meaning, a way of affirming life even in the face of its lack of fundamental guarantees. Perhaps that's what you're seeking when you feel this strange resistance to the programmed hope of the new year. A way of living that's truly yours, that emerges from your concrete experience, from your real values, from your capacity to create small moments of meaning in the midst of apparent, greater meaninglessness. A way of living that doesn't need a specific date on the calendar to manifest, because it's rooted in your own nature, in your own capacity to respond with authenticity to the challenges of existence. And when you find this way of living, you might discover that it contains a much deeper and more lasting hope than any superficial enthusiasm about calendar changes. A hope based not on fantasies about the future, but on the concrete experience of your own capacity to create meaning, to genuinely connect with others, to respond to life's challenges with courage and creativity. Not everyone needs to await the new year with hope, and perhaps this is one of the most liberating truths you can recognize. You have the right to feel what you really feel, to question ready-made narratives, to seek more authentic ways of relating to time, to the future, to your own existence. And in this search, in this courageous honesty with yourself, perhaps you'll find something much more valuable than any manufactured hope: the direct experience of your own freedom to choose how to live, regardless of what others expect or what the calendar suggests.